Okay. Hello everybody, here we are on Tuesday, July the 2nd, post-Canada Day, and we have quorum. We are ready to go at 7:06. So I am making the call to order. Can I have the adoption of the agenda? Thank you. Any changes?
If I can ask one, just a question, the status of the alert system, if you can fit that in somewhere, or?
So that's the staff report CAO.
Or is this too short a notice?
I think it'd be better to maybe bring something a little more substantive to the next meeting, perhaps.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Fine, it's off. Anything else? Yes?
Yeah, and in the new business, can I just a short commentary on the inserts that were in the village mailbox this week?
Village office inserts. Thank you.
And then just for, I guess, a point to everyone, I guess, sure that everyone's realised, but under the correspondence, I think Simons is going to speak to what you submitted as correspondence on page 81. Mm-hmm. And then we need to make sure we've got page 81 open when he's talking with the delegation. Perfect. 81 of correspondence then.
Thank you.
Page 165.
Going. Anything more, Councillor Abbott?
Nope.
Good. CAO.
An additional ground for closing the meeting be law enforcement.
Is there a number that goes with that?
Well, it'd be, we already have 14A was adoption of minutes, and 14B is law enforcement.
B,
and then under 91, we've got A, so we need to add F. F is a Frank.
Okay. So that's 1A and F.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
But
And
F is one of those ones that needs a preliminary resolution before doing the other resolution.
okay, we'll come back to that one. So you're in my job every time I'm here. And I have one change, and that'll be to, where are they? Shift the delegations on item number 4 from B will be C and C will be B. All in favor of changes? Going, yes? Yep.
Oh, yeah, sorry, there's
And
on table
reams of correspondence.
that relates to 4C, now B.
Yes, plus correspondence. Okay, all right, so all in favor of the agenda? Good, thank you. Public participation, that's the 2-minute version. Mrs. Simons, thank you. We know who you are. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming.
Yes. Good evening, Council. Council, thank you for having my correspondence and bringing it forward. I am here just for 2 minutes to quickly speak to the good news that we're getting close to the end of draft 2 of our nomination, our big long document. That's a submission to United Nations Education, Scientific, Cultural Organization, that's UNESCO, to their Man in the Biosphere program. Biosphere reserves, many people haven't heard of them. There's over 700 of them around the world in 124 countries, and there's 18 in Canada. We're hoping for House Sound, a Cutsum House Sound, to become the 19th Biosphere Reserve. Biosphere reserves seek to reconcile human activity with the conservation of biodiversity through sustainable use of natural resources. This reflects UNESCO's key objective of fostering innovative, sustainable development practices and combating the loss of biodiversity by accompanying communities and member states in their work to understand, appreciate, and safeguard the living environment of our planet. I felt for many years that, a number of us actually, that the framework for the Man in the Biosphere program would be a framework that meets the common objectives of people that we've heard from around the region. One of our objectives is, as many of us have been saying for a number of years, is for a comprehensive holistic comprehensive land and marine use plan for the region as defined by the boundary, which goes just north of, south of Whistler, over to Gibsons, West Vancouver, and it's the height of land, it's watershed. A watershed look at the region. So that's one of our objectives. The other is, of course, to provide logistical support to education, ongoing research, this amazing place. We celebrate ongoing conservation wins such as the glass sponge reefs that you'll hear more about, and just basically preserve and protect where we can. So, have any questions? And I seek your endorsement. Thank you.
I have several questions. When you completed your documentation and you handed in for their review, how long does it take for them to review?
It'll take, they get 2 external reviewers, so the package has to go in complete, which means it has to have all the endorsements, and it has to be a beautiful package. Then it would take at least 2 months for the reviewers to come visit, do a site visit, go through our document. There could be even further back and forth. So we're gunning for this year because there's timelines in order to make it into UNESCO in Paris by September. Likely not going to make that, so it would go to Paris September 2020 for designation 2021. So there will be a process once we put it all in there of having the reviewers come back to us.
Thank you. And on the second piece of your thing, where you're saying if the mayor or rep could sign on behalf of the village, section 5 of the document, and then this is an excerpt that's in here?
Yes, that's literally what the page looks like. There's 20 chapters of the nomination document. And the document can be supported by additional supporting letters. But they do want to know that the communities that are in the biosphere are endorsing the nomination.
All right. And do you have a suggested support letter, or that what could be emphasized, or?
Yeah, yes, definitely. I did provide the wording of the resolution from 2016.
Well, I see the 2016. We could kind of steal it again.
I can certainly provide you with a template of what other communities might be providing.
That would be very
It would be
gracious.
along those lines. And I think the main thing is that there is an understanding of what it is you're endorsing. And so I welcome any opportunities to explain that more.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions for Ruth?
Got one. The reason the signing request is because it's a new council, because didn't we sign this a few years back?
You did. You provided support in principle for the initiative to seek the nomination. Now we've actually put our entire document, when we put it together, it's pretty much, it's kind of an outline of what the intentions are on this.
Right.
So they do want to know that the communities are on board with that.
There you go. John, would this be appropriate to see if we put a motion forward to sign and provide a covering letter? I think there's a bit of time haste on this.
Well, there was. It would be really helpful. I have a long road ahead to go and ask for endorsements, so if we could kick it off with Lions Bay in principle saying yes, that would be really helpful, and then I can come back to
Well,
the actual.
how about we do the in principle and you come back then? So I would be in principle in favor of endorsing this and providing a covering letter, and I'll rotate around the clockwise to the councillors.
Yep.
Bing, Abbott, Barmier, I think you've got your endorsement. So if the paperwork could come, we'll turn it around.
Perfect.
Thank you very much, Bruce. And that concludes the 2-minute per person public participation. We were on to the public requests, the delegations, which are 10 minutes. Just as a heads up for this, Councillor Bain will be setting his timer, and when you hear the timer, if you could close off within a 15 seconds or so, that would be great. And in terms of the boundaries, because the gallery is bigger than the number of folks here, we're going to ask that you come no closer than the podium and speak loudly as you go. There we go. And first up is always a villager, and this year's Citizen of Distinction, Glenn Dennison.
Worship and council members for inviting me
Thank you.
to present.
Yeah.
I hope this is okay, everybody can see the presentation. I have roughly about 30 slides, so I'm going to go very, very fast here. So maybe questions, councilors, questions that you would like to ask. And I'd like to acknowledge that most of my work, research work, was done on the unceded lands of the Squamish Nation and some on the Musqueam territory. So what I'm going to talk about this evening is sponge reef discoveries, rockfish protection, and how it relates to the DFO. And this is our introductory slide, and what you're seeing there is actually glass sponge. And this is a glass sponge reef right there. 100% coverage in sponge. There's nowhere you can touch down on it. It's completely covered, and it's habitat for rockfish. The sponge locations, also known as bioherms, are mostly biased to the east side of Howe Sound, but just in the last few weeks, there's been discoveries made over by the Langdale Ferry Terminal, by the DFO, and at the south end of Gambier Island. So we're now actually expanding our knowledge of where the sponge reefs are. They stretch from the north to Defense Islands, all the way to the south to Passage Island, all those little red dots there. This is what it looks like when you're actually diving on one. Howe Sound has the only air gas diveable bioherm or sponge reefs in the world. That's how rare they are. They go back, all the way back to the Cambrian period, and I know this is a little hard for everybody to see, even the council members, but they stretch back to the pre-Cambrian dates. Massive reef builders right in the Jurassic Cretaceous period, and they ended with the mass extinction event at the end of the Cretaceous period, where we actually thought they had went extinct 65 million years ago. And I was just talking to Max Crowder, Professor Crowder here. He has dated sponge reefs on planet Earth to 570 million years ago. This actually predates the Cambrian life explosion that we had at around 515 million years ago. The formation of glass sponge reefs in BC, roughly 14,000 years before today. And the geology of BC, by the way, is land masses that came up across the equator and slammed into the coastal side of Alberta, and there was a sea in there one time, a saltwater sea. So we probably think the ones in Howe Sound 6,000 to 7,000 years old, so they're older than Lions Bay. The main type of sponge that you'll see in the bioherms is cloud sponge. The scientific name is Aphroclistes vastus. Get a test on this. And we also have about 1% coverage of a chalice sponge called Heterocony calyx. And there's a picture of me above one at 125 feet mid-sound there. Those black rings on my gloves are roughly 8 inches across. That sponge is almost a meter across. It's nature's own artwork. So protecting these sponge bioherms, sponge reefs, we work with several groups, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, the First Nations, BC Parks, and societies. And we bring them all together to try to protect these very unique sites. And there's some of our partners. Something's come up here.
Oh.
I'll just go okay to that. I don't know what it is. This is not my computer, so. So some of the partners that we work with are Islands Trust, the Aquarium, Marine Life Sanctuary Society, the Underwater Council, First Nations. There's just groups of them you bring together to achieve these results. But it all starts with gathering data. I mean, you have to come in with science here, and it starts with mapping. On the right-hand side is a high-resolution map of the Halkett bioherm that's right across from Lions Bay. Most people look out the front window at that. There's a big glass sponge bioherm and a sponge garden side by side there. And what we do is we gather temperature data. Every 4 hours we have a temperature logger down there that logs the temperature and date stamps it. And we put drop camera down on it for areas that are deeper than scuba divers can reach. And we will actually record the information on the camera, imprint it with the boat location and all of the information that we have for position, and then we make charts out of that. So this is what it looks like when it's going down. There's some of the pictures. This is below 300 feet, some of those pictures. And there's one with a glass sponge and a tire, and there's a prawn trap with sponge going around it. So you can see the sponge are down there growing, and there's human interference with them, hence protection. This site is right outside our door at the Calvin Grove Triple Seamount. It's about a quarter of a nautical mile off the marina. And I did a Enviro 400 UBC study out there with the class, and what we were doing is prawn densities in and outside of the glass sponge reefs. And this is the kind of data that we would collect and submit to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans here. Those are all tracks, by the way, showing drop camera paths over the reef. That information was then written up into a report and given to the DFO. The DFO went out in the CCGS Neocaligulus, and they actually took an ROV down there at $25,000 a day, and they ground truthed our discoveries and found out, yes, indeed, there was sponge reefs there. This is a report, or an example of the report that the DFO science people then would write up from their studies. That information then was passed on to resources at DFO, and in September 2017, there was a letter asking for voluntary closures on all of the known reef sites in Howe Sound for any prawn fishing or any contact fishing. So it wasn't law yet, but as of March 6, 2019, the government of Canada announced full protection for the Howe Sound sponge reefs, or at least the ones that we knew of at that time. So this is an interesting slide here. This is the path to protection. It starts with data gathering, primary journal papers, and I put one into the Canadian Natural Field Journal. The MLSS biologist wrote up the data in a report form. That report went to the DFO scientists. The DFO scientists ground truthed the data, generated a report. This was passed all on to the resource department at DFO. There was a stakeholders meeting, and then the recommendations then were passed on to Jonathan Wilkinson, the fisheries minister, who was the minister that actually orders the closures. And this is what it looks like off of Lions Bay where the sponge reefs are. On the right-hand lower section is the Calvin Grove Seamount, sitting at about 250 feet below the surface. And the far left one is the Lions Bay Seamount, sitting at about 230 feet. These reefs are completely covered in sponge, and they are habitat and home to an enormous number of rockfish. There's another close-up of the two areas right there. This is the Lions Bay Seamount. We actually dove on the top of the seamount with the Trimix team, and we put temperature loggers down on the edge of the seamount, and also acoustic loggers with the DFO. And they came back with a lot of boat noise, but they came back with a lot of fish noise also down there. So we know that there's an abundance of fish, and it's an area to be protected. Now, we haven't ended the search for sponge, and again, as I'd mentioned earlier, the Langdale site off to the left there, off Langdale, has a large sponge reef on it, just discovered a few weeks back, and also at the south end of Gambier Island there off of Camino Point. And these will be also up for protection. We also do explorations with submarines. This is the Stingray from Aquatica Submarines, and we did a series of 6 dives in the Calvin Grove bioherb and came back with an enormous amount of video data and information about what's actually down there. And there's the head of science in the Vancouver Aquarium, Jessica Schultz, there over top of the bioherb in the submarine, that are roughly 250 feet down. The other site that we worked extensively on was the Hellkit Marine Park expansion, and we did this because the DFO was not ready to offer any protection yet for the site, yet we knew all about it. So we went to the provincial government and we actually had them expand the boundaries of the Hellkit Marine Park there, so that at least there would be some knowledge about what was down there and possibly another layer of protection. One of our jobs in the future now is we're going to have that set as a full rockfish conservation area. And on to rockfish here. The other site that we're working actively on right now is Brigade Reef, right off the eastern side of Gambier Island, just below Brigade Bay itself. There's a big reef out there. And in the slide right there, you're seeing a colony of copper rockfish. They're somewhat rare now in Howe Sound. That's 4 of them together. They're at risk. And this is what the site looks like and the location on it. This is the underwater chart, high resolution chart of it. Very rocky, perfect terrain for a seed area for rockfish to live and grow, nursery area. And what we do is we take down teams of scuba divers, and I have 3 teams of them that go down. This is one of the teams right there. A lot of them have master's degrees in marine biology, and they're all trained to count rockfish, very similar to the Christmas bird count, where we just do them all the time. And they go down and they do transects, and they count fish, and they record it on waterproof paper. And this is what the transects would look like. This information then is compiled and passed on to the DFO. We have 3 areas on the reef that we are going to survey. We've done number 1 so far, and we're still waiting to do 2 and 3. We've got no funding to do that just yet, but we're hopefully moving forward with it. But we have enough data at this point that I've gone in and actually given a presentation of the DFO requesting that this site be moved into an RCA status. So this is the effort that we would put on just site 1 there. Those are all the dive dates, and there would be 2 dives for each of those dates with the team down counting fish. The results of the count are not a lot of fish, so we are concerned about that, and we're going to continue to get baseline data on that and continue to urge the DFO to protect it. And this is an example of the problem out there. This is a boat that had 6 fishermen with 6 rods in the water, jigging for rockfish right beside the reef, over top of a colony of quillbacks that actually was decimated after they left. I suspect that they had been working this area quite often, and this was a paid charter that was out there. Area 28, which is Howe Sound, is completely closed to lingcod and rockfish harvesting. So it was the request of the MLS and the UCBC to have the reef and areas around the UCBC mooring buoy out there moved into an RCA status. And this is the only area that we have a mooring buoy that isn't in an RCA status. So we need increased protection and the need for increased monitoring, and we need to move that area into an RCA if we're hoping to protect those fish out there. Rockfish take a long time to reproduce, guys. The larger and older the rockfish, the larger the clutch of birth that they give live birth with larvae, roughly about 7 millimeters long, translucent. And the bigger, older fish, it's kind of opposite of humans, give the best births. There we go, my under 10 minutes, Fred.
That's pretty good entertainment, isn't it? There you go. How could I ask any questions after that? Councillors, any questions from the audience? No? Thank you very,
How
very
much
much.
does it cost this project?
Which one? The sponges, the rockfish?
Roughly.
The rockfish one? We've put about $1,000 towards it so far, and mostly towards both
How much
cost
do
and
you need
getting over.
more? Because maybe we can contribute.
They cost a lot, yeah.
You're sitting right beside him, that's good.
You know, the divers pay their way out, but we also need boat funding towards it too. So, you know, it's expensive to go out there and do these dives, and this is why areas 2 and 3 have not been surveyed yet. Yet we have the manpower and the trained manpower. I actually have all my dive teams take a course through the Vancouver Aquarium on rockfish identification, so
Okay.
it's
Contact
expensive.
with you, yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Glenn.
Thank you.
Take care, and congratulations again. All right, next up, Emma Shaw.
Need a sign? I did, is that okay?
Probably won't set up.
If there's nothing to-
I've got the 2 videos here for you.
Oh, perfect,
So all you
thank
have
you.
to do is just click it over when you're ready. and
That is
it'll just
great.
start playing.
Excellent,
Yeah,
thanks.
that works.
I wasn't sure exactly how it would.
All All right, we're ready whenever you are.
Perfect. So hello and thank you for having us here this evening. My name is Emma Shaw. My partner Dustin Nadeau and I are owners of Unit 2 at 350 Center Road. Today I'm representing 4 of 6 residential owners who reside in our building. These owners include Colleen and Brian McBallis, who are owners of Unit 4 and who have lived in our building for 14 years. Dylan Smith and Mimi Bayon, they're owners of Unit 5, who couldn't join us tonight. And lastly, Susan Leeson, who's owner of Unit 6, and she's owned in the building for the past 7 years. As owners of Unit 2, we reside directly above the general store and cafe. In the spring of 2018, we purchased Unit 2. We were very excited about the opportunity to own in a small community that's family-oriented. We're looking for a safe place to start a family and raise our future children. We purchased a relatively affordable unit, some of the only affordable multifamily housing to be found on or near the North Shore, where we could easily raise several children. Very lucky to have found it. We're lucky to be starting a family now. I'm currently 9 months pregnant. Dustin and I love this community. The hiking, the ocean, the friendly faces that we see every day. Living by the store, we see a lot of people. We look forward to becoming more and more integrated once we have our baby. But we go to many community events and have started to make friends in the community as well. When we purchased above the unit, or a unit above the general store and cafe, we were aware that there would be noise that would travel from into our unit from the businesses below. But we would have never anticipated that the patio of the store and cafe would be playing live amplified music. And this has not been something that has been done in the past or that we could find online prior to purchasing our unit. I did file a noise complaint with the village on June 10th about an event being held on the patio of the store and cafe where there was live amplified music that was being played on the patio. And we had guests over to celebrate a birthday, and the volume of the event from the amplified music below our unit made it extremely challenging to enjoy our environment outside on our patio and inside as well. It was a disturbance. We literally had to yell to have a conversation. Given that we live in a building that's 40 years old, over 40 years old, or coming up to, our units are not nearly soundproof, and much of the noise from the outside travels inside, even when your windows are closed. Each owner that is present with us today and who couldn't be here has been negatively impacted by the noise generated from the events held on the property that day, June 2nd, June 16th, and June 22nd. There's a recording from the June 22nd event, and that was taken from 4 units down. This is actually from my unit. It's very nice music. And then I just have another clip on mine. There. That's from 4 units down. So it's not just my unit. Sorry for not having that linked up to the screen for you guys. I did make a noise complaint given that the Village of Lions Bay has a noise bylaw that states no person shall make, cause, or permit to be made within the village a continuous sound with a noise level that, measured at a point of reception, exceeds 55 decibels in the daytime or 45 decibels in the nighttime, with the sound exemption being that an amplified performance of vocal or instrumental music by a person or a group of persons between the hours of 1500 and 2000 hours. For comparison, examples of 50 decibels is a conversation at home, and 60 decibels is an air conditioning unit at 100 feet. The response I received to my noise complaint was that the Village Council had decided to relax the noise bylaw to allow for live amplified music on the patio of the general store and cafe on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, and holiday Mondays through to the end of summer, between the hours of noon and 8 p.m., weather permitting at the discretion of the store cafe owner, and that the situation would be monitored going forward. It's unfair to simply relax a bylaw that has been passed by the village for the benefit of a business, and that's to the detriment of owners. residential owners who reside in the building. The noise volume has a direct negative impact on our quality of life and compromises our ability to enjoy our homes. The decision that the council has made is not in the best interest of all of the owners in our building, just simply one. As owners, we're not concerned about the noise from live music. It's fun. So all they're trying to do is just make a fun environment. Where there's singing and a guitar being played, we're concerned with the noise that's generated when the music is amplified. The patio is very small. It's approximately 300 square feet. Dustin estimated that, and seats about 28 people. It's unnecessary that the music should be amplified in such a small venue. For Canada Day celebrations yesterday at the beach, it was entirely appropriate to have the music amplified. It's a very large venue. It was suitable. It accommodates a very large group of people. There is absolutely give and take in living in a mixed-use building, without a doubt, with residential and commercial space. So we are very understanding of that. We're already significantly impacted by the store and cafe without the increased noise production from amplified music. There are absolutely exceptions that can be made. For instance, the house concert series, but they take place at individuals' homes, not on a shared property. Myself and the group that I'm representing today ask that the Village Council not relax the noise bylaw for the amplified music and allow it to be played on the general store and cafe patio, and please take into consideration the negative impact that this decision will have on owners in our multifamily building.
Thank you very much, and just stand there and for a minute, Councillor, if you can.
Yeah.
Councillors, any questions?
I have one. Did your strata council approve this, or has it gone to a vote?
Typically, these things aren't discussed ahead of time. They've never been discussed by our strata council.
Oh.
Last summer, there were several events that we did discuss, and we had made a complaint to our strata council, and they had told us that we have to go by the village bylaws. So that's what I did. And I was hoping that the village bylaws would trump that of our strata councils. That being said, we are governed by the Strata Property Act, and there's a big portion of that that discusses nuisance noise to owners, and that moving forward, we'll need to escalate that to the Civil Resolution Tribunal, which is quite a lengthy process. We will do that if needed. We do have a meeting in the next couple of weeks that does discuss this from our strata council's perspective. But currently, our current council doesn't necessarily hear where the four owners, the 4 units are coming from, which consist of 2 of them these are investment properties for them, and they have renters, and then the others are commercial businesses.
Just thank you. Any other questions?
So you do intend to bring it up at the next strata meeting?
We have scheduled a hearing.
Schedule the hearing with the strata?
Yes.
Okay.
And then they will decide
Okay.
if it's appropriate or not, which we've done in the past. And it hasn't been an issue for our strata council.
Okay. But has there been a vote on this matter at the strata meeting? I'm just trying to understand.
In the past there has,
There has
and
been.
now for this summer, that we've just brought that up. Yeah.
Okay. So at that time the vote was in favour of allowing the music?
Yeah, that anyone can do that.
Okay. Just want to understand the strata's
Yeah,
position.
no, absolutely.
How does the voting structure work in that mixed scenario? You've got how many, six residential units?
6 residential.
And how many
and
commercial?
There's 4 commercial.
4 members.
Yes, our council is 4 members, so they would represent each member would have a vote, and then because there's 4 council members altogether, the president would have the tie vote if it came to a tie. If we were changing, like implementing a bylaw or like a new bylaw at an AGM, then every owner would get And every residential owner would have one vote, and then commercial owners would have 4 altogether. Because we collectively own 2 of our units.
Did you get the
So
math on
the
that?
strata owns 2 of the residential units?
Correct. 2 of the commercial units. That's
commercial.
Canada Post, the community mailboxes, and then TELUS runs out of one of them as well.
So if you have an AGM
Yes.
and there's a vote,
Mhm.
each unit has 1 vote?
Except each residential unit would, but the 2 commercial units that are owned by Craig Doherty, Broughton and Broughton, they would have 2 votes per unit, so 4 altogether.
So there's a maximum of 10 votes,
Correct,
6 of which are residential.
yes.
Okay.
And 4 residents who, of those 6 votes, who actually reside in the building.
Yeah, okay. I think I got it.
Yeah. Long-winded, but.
Okay, and you won't have seen it, council will, and it's here on table. There's a raft of emails that have come in that I asked that it's be put on table, which means it's part of the official correspondence. And this has been seemingly coming hour by hour from points far and wide. So I mean, our council members who are working may not have seen this, and I don't propose that they start reading it right this second.
No.
So I think that unless you have a different suggestion, CAO John, we will receive and thank the delegate, and this will probably might appear on next council's agenda.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on just about everything. Thank you. All right. Are we all cleaned up? There we go. Mr. Zordigan, if you could take the podium and tell us when you're ready, we'll put you on the clock.
Good evening. Just as I have sent all the pictures before to you regarding the filming with Royal Kelvin, I would like to ask you, would you please just pass it to the council and I wish to speak to you, council, Mr. Mayor and the council, regarding the filming. There was a policy, that policy had been changed immediately for one time after a few years that we struggling to prove this policy. Lions Bay as a whole is a residential, not commercial, and the filming is gonna just help us so much in Lower Kelvin Road. And what I'm asking you regarding the action, if you please, enforce the existing filming policy or the other one that we had before, and that it's gonna be reflected to all of us. And then just the main point of the filming is the immediate impacted neighbors. And it was stated in that one that if even the one neighbor say no, it means there is no filming going to happen. And the second one in the action is do not change the existing filming policy every time when the company comes here and talking about that. It means we have the policy, but it shouldn't be changed because of the requested of some of the companies. In this regard, because I would like to ask you that the action plan has been created just to resolve the issues. And please make a priority for all of these things and the items, and let us live in the peace and tranquility. And I'm sure that based on your integrity and consideration to your other neighbors, you consider it. The second thing that I would like to talk, and hopefully you let us know about your decision about this matter. Hopefully we go back to the old one, which it was one immediate neighbor, and they added some other neighbors that they are not actually impacted in sweet water or whatsoever, but they are not impacted by anything over there, but just 8 or 9 immediate impacted for the filming. The second part that I wanted to, would you please just pass it to me?
We all have
We all have
You
that.
had it. Oh, sorry.
And the previous one, we have them now.
Oh, sorry for that. I didn't know that. Just the other one that I want to talk about, the parking, which is if you look at the action, I would like to change I would like to talk to you about the priority. Number 7 is the first priority for all of us, because there is just a few parking that we asking for neighbors that it's not happened yet. There is 2 signage of parking. One of them when you come inside the entrance, and the other one when you turn on the bridge. You will see that it invited the people come over there. Saturday, I had someone knock the door and said that I need electricity. I said, what? Electricity. It was a big army. And I said, we don't have any electricity in here. They said, but this is the parking. I said, by the way, you make a mistake. There is no parking for armies. On Sunday, even the bylaw officer was the witnesses. I don't know how long was that RV, but it was so big one that hit my driveway because they couldn't turn. They came over there by invitation of the parking, and they come over there and they want to turn back because there is no parking space for them. There was 2, one of them a smaller one, another one was so big that after 10 minutes maybe they could turn around and go back. I would like just number 7 become the first, and number 5 increase the penalty for the parking ticket, which is so cheap in here. Number 5 should be the number 2 actually, and number 4 should be the third priority, which is because they are coming over there that much, you can read it, by the way. Also, right now we have 2-3 major things regarding the parking. 1, what we can do for the weekend, weekdays, nothing. Is there any bylaw officer? No, we don't have money, I know that. We don't have a budget for that. But what we can do that on weekdays, we will be safe and we could be able to sleep. Because they are coming over there after 10, but in weekdays all the time, because they know that. They know that there is no bylaw officer, no enforcement. But after 10 actually, 10:30, the bylaw officer is very, very good one. He came over there and then he has gone, and after that I came home about 11:15. I saw that there is a few cars that, they go and passing by, but no one can enforce anything that let us to be enjoy our life. Everything that I told you about the filming and parking is regarding to noise, it's regarding to tranquility, peace, and overall livability. We can live over there in this situation. In summer, what we can do. What's your plan? That please find out any plan regarding the weekdays after 10, and also definitely, I'm asking you the question to remove those signage for the parking, if it's possible. If there is any question, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Council members, any questions? CAO, would you like to think about this? And you don't have to respond now. You may bring this forward next week or at the next council meeting if there's some suggested changes you see like fit.
I'd like to speak to a couple of points that are in here. The first being with respect to parking. The first point that is suggested here is that parking should be reserved for Lions Bay residents, not outsiders. That's not our policy in Lions Bay.
Some locations.
We don't live in a gated community.
5 or 6 locations just for residents.
So,
Your resident cannot stay there right now. It's full.
I just want to be clear, that's not our policy. We're not exclusionary. Secondly, some residential spots have been added to the lot and
On the grass.
and some below the grass. On
The grass,
yeah.
but the
Yeah.
grass they are trying to trim it, but it becomes out of order anymore.
We can't install a gate or a chain. It's a huge opening to the parking lot. You could, a gate would cost $100,000 probably. And even a chain is not going to be feasible. It's not functional. We don't have volunteer firefighters who can come and lock it
It's
up
not
at night
functional that they
and
Check the,
yeah, no, that's just, we looked at that before, when you've requested it in the past. It's been discussed, it's been debated, and logic is not feasible. And residents cannot call towing companies. A vehicle must be ticketed first,
But you
and
don't have a
it
bylaw,
isn't
so-
necessarily going to be towed.
how about the weekdays?
And we have actually already raised the ticket prices. We're in line with other communities. We can't distinguish between repeat offenders. The bylaw officer doesn't have a way of knowing that until after the ticket is written and the license plate is searched.
Yeah, but the question is
so-
about the weekdays.
So you can't change what the ticket is after the fact. And yeah, I mean, the bylaw officer's around until 10:30, 11 o'clock
When?
at night.
Friday,
So-
Saturday, Sunday. How about the
And-
weekdays, please?
And the police have been requested to do patrols
Who?
in the summertime.
Police?
So we'll follow up with that. You know, they have obviously limited resources as well. But you know, from a functional standpoint in terms of the number of hours that we have bylaw enforcement in the community, it is a budget issue, and it's also a matter of the amount of work that's available for a bylaw officer to do during the week does not warrant having one on a full-time basis. So that's just a few points that I wanted to bring up, but certainly we'll have further discussion about it.
Yeah, I have a question about the weekdays. And after 10 on weekdays. It means everybody knows that there is no bylaw officer, no enforcement, and the police that you are talking, I haven't seen them maybe in 5-6 months, even though one time. What's your plan for the weekdays and after 10? This is the first priority. And also, are you agree with me about those signage of the parking that invited non-resident coming over there and bothering us that we pay taxes? What's the benefit of those parking signage? If someone explained to me, I love that.
Right. So when somebody's driving on the highway, they don't see a sign that says, "Come here and park." It's when they've already exited the highway
But-
and they're looking for where do they park if they're going to go find a place to park.
What's
So
the
that's what-
benefit of that parking signage that invited the people?
Peter, can I ask a question? So it started off, I thought we were going to come back and we were all going to discuss this.
Yeah.
And I think we probably all have, or I certainly have some comments on some of these points. And then you provided some comments, and yourself and Mr. Zordigan are getting into a bit of a debate.
Yeah.
Are we bringing this back for the rest of us to have input on, or are we going to do it now? I guess that's the question.
Well, I think we're halfway through the pain, Councillor Abbott, so I think I could see us continuing for another 10 minutes to get to that point. I welcome your input, so we're recorded on it, and we can reflect on it afterwards. So, are you finished, CAO to John? I mean, pretty much.
The question is, sorry, everybody can see that signage of the parking, but I don't know, because I'm very stupid, I don't know what's the benefit of that signage for Lions Bay.
So that people don't drive around aimlessly looking
Pardon me?
so that people don't drive around aimlessly looking for parking.
Aim looking
That-
for what?
All right, so we're gonna nip
I'm
this
not talking
one
about
in the
the-
bud here. Okay,
The
so,
people come over there,
all right,
don't worry, they know
Mr.
that.
Zordigan, that 10 minutes is gonna go pretty quick here. So, if there's a question, we'll be asking you, so it's not an interchange, don't run
Okay.
away yet. Councillor Abbott, you've got some thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I had a few as we were going through that list. Some of them were questions of clarity, some of them thoughts, I guess. We do have, not in the actions in the up there, the second bullet, there's a mention of non-residents to park, especially RVs and trucks. So, remind me, there is no RVs permitted to park in the Golden Globe lot, is that correct? We don't have sign, or is RVs permitted in the Golden
That
Globe?
signage said.
Yeah.
There's no RVs?
Yeah.
So that is taken care of, that.
Yeah.
No, when they come over there, they can see there is sign no RVs.
Okay.
But they invited first. Why? Because the problem and
Okay.
this only.
Just, if I can just go through my thoughts and questions. Okay, on the action number one, I thought there were non-resident parking spots there previously. I know there was previously, or there are still non-resident parking spots.
There was some time ago, but as part of the previous mayor's parking plan, those were removed. We've added back the first three stalls as resident parking stalls,
Is resident-
and then we've also added an additional 2 or 3, depending on the size of the vehicle, street parking below the parking lot on the south side of the street.
So the request here then, from Mr. Zordigan, would be to increase it from 3 to 7. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes.
Okay. I used to go park there frequently. I was never short of the spot, but I don't know what it's like in summer. The gated chain, I understand. I think there's not just logistical issues. I'm not sure we can do that. I hear what you're saying about not being able to increase the offence for repeat offenders. However, there's got to be something, isn't there? If people just keep ignoring the law, there'll just be something we can do.
Well, if you got a speeding ticket and then
I'll just get another
you
speeding ticket.
get another speeding ticket,
Well, eventually I'll lose my license.
Yeah,
So there's the mechanism there.
right?
If I park downtown Vancouver and I just decide I'd rather pay fines than pay for parking, I guess I can do it ad infinitum.
Mm-hmm. Well,
If you
so-
work at UBC, they eventually put a boot on your car,
Yeah,
so you.
then we work it out.
Unless you pay.
You pay for it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just from scanning the ticket list, there were 2 in June, 2 in May, and none in June.
Repeat
But
offenders.
what,
Repeat offenders.
but that one, if you look at the time, was
Mm.
like the same. It was only an hour and a half apart.
Sorry, yes, you're right.
So not quite sure what happened there or
Yeah.
why that was.
So
So-
you don't believe repeat offenders is not an issue then?
No.
No.
Okay. Right. Because my comment in the last meeting about the CN parking lot was pointed out it'd be cheaper to pay the fines.
Mhm.
So there's something out of whack there. That was that one. I understand the need for highway directional signs. I must be honest, Mr. Dogan, the first time you mentioned those signs, I didn't know what you're talking about. I drove past there for weeks, and eventually I said, I've got to go find the sign you're talking about. And I actually went to look for it, and then I could see it. I doubt anyone driving along the highway sees it as a neon light invitation to come park. Just my opinion, because I didn't.
Yes, please.
Because I didn't see it many times, and I actually went to look for it. And I can fully understand if someone lives in that neighbourhood, the cul-de-sac right there. You don't want someone driving down the cul-de-sacs, not knowing which way to go. I think the signs are necessary. That's my opinion. I would actually disagree with you.
I would like to know your idea. What's the benefit of that signage first, and then, as I mentioned, that everybody welcome to my house in weekdays, not weekend, anytime after 6. Welcome over there with drink, a snack, whatsoever, to see that what you are suffering.
Mhm.
Because the RVs comes over there because of that parking sign. If they remove that one when you come into the entrance, that will be actually another one is when you pass the bridge. Those two signage, please remove it, because no benefit for us, no benefit for the Lions Way. Just accept that they bothering us with the big RVs that they
All right.
hit my
Councillor
drive.
Abbott, do you have another question?
I would just add to that, we have had complaints from Sweetwater and Periwinkle of cars going in, looking for
In the
parking.
cul-de-sac, I can
Cul-de-sac.
imagine. That's what I'm assuming.
That's part of the reason those signage were
And
installed.
that's right.
It's a safety issue. I live on one of those cul-de-sacs and dozens of cars in a day or more can go through a cul-de-sac whipping around and there's kids playing. And so the signs are absolutely necessary.
Well,
And just, I guess,
how about us?
if
that
you've ever been to Stanley Park or to Jericho Beach or to a park in Whistler, you don't live there, you're a non-resident, and you're parking there to enjoy the nature and the community, and that is what people come to Lions Bay to do. That's how we attract new
But
residents to
you
live here.
attract them, but you know, what the price? The price that we pay, not you. Because we
Oh,
are
I do
living
pay.
there.
I do pay, I don't pay
Don't pay the
taxes on the
suffering
city of
on top.
Vancouver, and I use their resources all the time.
But
So,
this
it's
is your
kind of a
idea, I
parallel.
respect it.
Yeah, I think we're all just giving our opinions. So
Yeah.
we're not going to give it a debate.
Good.
To give the solution, I have one last one.
Please?
On the last point, I don't suggest we can have the answer now, but I do also feel if we could somehow look at some sort of restructuring of the hours on the bylaw office to have some sort of intermittent, I don't know if they're available, you know, one shift a week that moves around, that's after the regular hours. I think that would be something good. I don't know if we can do it logistically, I don't know if they're available, if we can adjust on budget, but I do think as a general thing to not have a known fact there's only laws apply in this time. You could well be ticketed at a random time because there's some sort of floating shift. If we can come up with that, I think it's something to consider.
We did add the ability of public works crews to ticket vehicles as well.
We did.
Yeah.
Is there been much action on that?
Yes, there has, not much.
Not much.
No.
Okay.
They can ticket it.
Good, thank you. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Zordigan. My
Thank
sense...
you so much, Mr. Mayor, and all of you. And just as I said before, welcome to my house anytime to be, to see that what's going on to us, but weekdays, not weekend. And also about the filming policy, please do not forget. All the immediate impacted,
Good.
if one of them say no.
Thank you very much, and
Yes, sir.
would you like...
Have you filled out the filming survey yet?
Pardon me?
The filming survey on our website?
No, no.
All right,
You want me to do that? I will.
you should.
You know, I had a problem with my computer.
All right.
Pardon me?
So I do have a question.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
It was just sort of, it's more curiosity because I've only recently moved to Lions Bay, but how long's the park been there?
KG Park,
Yeah.
Since the inception.
since inception.
Okay, so that community asset's been there from the beginning.
Yeah.
When was the parking lot put in?
So wouldn't it be 83 when the development happened?
81 was when the sewer plant came online, so I would suspect it was installed in 81.
And the parking-
The entire area was subdivided at that point.
And the parking lot was put there when?
It would have been
Probably
at the same
since
time.
So that's been there from the beginning.
Yeah.
Has
Since
that's
the
not
beginning,
changed?
correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So if I could just tie up on the two pieces here. Touching base with CAO DeJohn and having listened to the delegate specific to the parking, this is substantially a operational issue, and we've listened to our residents on this one. And I believe there will be no changes from what is here. I did take Councillor Abbott's point about rotation of the bylaw officer. We'll leave that with the CAO to consider, or if it's a budget item for next year, CFO Rook, can you put that down? Because there's kind of some wisdom in that too. So that concludes on the parking. On the filming side, the resident or the delegate's opinion is welcome. There is a survey out, and the office coordinator advises me we've had 51 hits and responses on it so far in a short time. So hopefully we'll get more on that, and the policy will come forward. That concludes the public delegation portion of the meeting, and gentlemen and Councillor Cunliffe, we are on to the review and approval of minutes. The prior meeting, so we can get going. Can I have a motion to accept the regular council meeting of June 18? Can I have a first? Thank you. Second, any discussion, any changes? Councillor Abbott?
I have one, no, I have two. Page 49 of the package, item 8A5. Could we add one more statement at the end? I think there was a further response from me after the CEO made this response. Something along the lines of Councillor Abbott made the point that residents with suitable qualifications who aren't necessarily looking may well be interested in working closer to home.
Okay.
There was a point I made and it kind of seems to have died.
All right. And your second
My
point?
second one is 110 Sunset Drive. It reads, 110 Sunset Drive requested an encroachment of 5 feet onto municipal property for a small portion of retaining wall. That's not really accurate. There's a small portion of retaining wall and a 45-foot long fence and a hedge that will be on council property outside of the fence. So a little more accurate would probably read a small retaining wall, comma, a 45-meter long fence, 45-foot long fence, and a hedge.
The hedge isn't actually part of the encroachment agreement.
Okay, but the resident mentions the hedge in his request, so we didn't tell him he can't have a hedge. I think he thinks.
No, we confirmed that it's going to be right adjacent, right up to the fence, and the fence will be right up to the sport court.
A hedge wouldn't be part of an encroachment agreement, it's landscaping. The fence would, because it's a hard structure, a permanent
Yes.
structure, and same with the asphalt.
Yes.
So that's why the hedge wasn't included in
The fence wasn't included yet, so we include the fence, but not the hedge.
We included the fence, correct?
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
It's not minutes. It's not in the minutes. It doesn't mention the fence.
Yeah.
But I'm still puzzled by the hedge. So are we telling him
Let's do it in a two-part piece. Are you making an amendment to this, or are you letting that go?
No, I'd like amendment of the fence. We all agree that should be.
The retaining wall and fence.
And 45-foot long fence or and fence.
So done? Now your question?
My question. So if we pointed out to him that he hasn't necessarily got permission to put a hedge in.
A hedge is a standard landscaping that any resident can do. So the hedge isn't included in the encroachment agreement. Having said that, we have advised him that the hedge has to be right adjacent to the fence.
Okay, so I guess that's part of the encroachment policy we're going to talk about. I mean, we have issues with hedges everywhere, and we're encouraging people to keep building on the side of the road. But I guess that's another discussion. Okay.
Well, I think we're going to be talking about hedges a little later on
Yes,
today.
a typical example. Yeah.
And we'll use that one as a practical example. Thank you. Are you done, Councillor Abbott? You're good? All in favor of the changes? Thank you. Unanimous. Next up on the other one, which is Councillor Bromere, that would be the special meeting.
Right.
Perfect. I missed it too when I although somebody tick mark. Okay, can I have a motion to accept the special council meeting minutes? First, thank you. Second, discussion, any changes? Gone. They're being done, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Business arising from the minutes. I had none. Anybody else? There being none?
Okay. I was going to talk about the inserts that went into the mailboxes. I brought it up under new business. I guess it could be under business arising because half of it was in the previous minutes, the transit part of it. But I'm happy to do the end whenever anyone wants to.
Your call, let's go.
Would you rather do it now?
Fine.
Okay.
Sure.
Sorry.
So I assume everyone's seen it?
Yep.
Everyone got it in their boxes?
Yep.
Yes. And as one of the persons suggested this kind of stuff,
All right.
I think I'm very positive about it. I have one general principal issue with it, is that council wants to hear from you, but council has not discussed this. Surely we should have had it at council first, before we go out and say, council wants to hear from you, when I don't think any of council saw it until it was in their mailboxes.
I think the intent was to get as much information gathered as possible. We'll have a delegation coming to the July 16th meeting as well from Creative BC, speaking about filming. And so we will have gathering information, and then we'll put together options and a more comprehensive report that can take into account the information that we receive. So that was the intent of getting the survey out front.
Okay. So it sounds like there's a time crunch here again, and we're reacting to being crunched for time. It seems to be a common theme.
It was my wording, and I just took it from previous discussions that council has had about filming that, and the endorsement of the survey that.
That's right.
So,
okay. I do endorse surveys, I think I've got a few other points in here that I think if we all had a bit of input, we could have come up with some other ideas and maybe possibly done better. But there was no input. It was done by staff. I'll use that term generally. I'm not sure, but there was no input from council. One point that I do feel kind of strongly on is this idea that one household, you get one survey per household. I think that's wrong. It's archaic. I think universal franchising happened a long time ago. I think every member of the household gets to have an opinion. And I know in my household, you're not always going to get the same opinion out of me and the other member that takes the household. And we both are opinions about it. So to only have one, I disagree with that. I think it should always be residents, and I've made this point before. So I think it should be residents. End of story. And if one household gets 2 votes because they both think or want to put it in, and one only decides only one person is going to speak, I don't think that's important. It's not a poll. It's just gathering as much information as you can. So I think it should be per resident. That's the one thing I'd like to say. A couple of other minor things. I think the last point, the last question, all things being considered, should have been a multiple choice, as in you can have more than one answer, sorry, not multiple choice. It should be one of the select all, because you could agree that it should not happen, should only happen during daylight hours, and should only be allowed in non-resident areas. You can't make it exclusive, and I know you could have filled that in by comments. That would have been a comment I would have made there. I think the current filming policy should have been a link. There's no link to it. Talks about a current filming policy, but if you didn't know where to find one, you couldn't find it.
I think it's on our page.
Sorry? It is. It's on the Bible. It's on the policy pages.
Yeah.
You can find it.
Yeah,
But for the typical resident that's getting this,
we put a link in the village update piece as well.
no, I don't. You did.
Anyways,
I may be wrong, but I don't think there was a link.
but there was a link.
Having said that, I'm looking at the paper copy, so maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't think there was a link. I'm not sure in this case why West Vancouver or other Metro Vancouver areas is really a category of area, but I think maybe there was a reason for that.
Yeah, I wanted to identify if people from outside the village were filling in the survey as
Filling
well.
in the survey?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so, okay. So you could discount them, maybe? I would hope. And, yeah, that was just small kind of language kind of issues. Then the question, second to last question. Currently, only film companies require a permit. I believe that homeowners should also need a municipal permit to host filming in or on their property. Do we mean, I'm a little puzzled by that. Are we saying if you're filming on your property, that you need access from municipal property? Surely anyone can film on their property as long as they're not using municipal land as access.
No, it's using your using residential RS1 property for use that was never intended by the zoning. So one could, just as we do with short-term rentals, require a temporary use permit or something similar.
Okay.
That was the intent of.
I guess
of
we
that.
then need to define filming then, I guess.
Pardon me?
Do we then need to define filming? If someone on their property decides to make a family home video, right?
All right,
Yeah,
Councillor
well,
Abbott, I think we're hair splitting now. So
Okay.
drive with your last point.
I still don't understand, maybe I guess I do understand what you're saying. So there would be 2 permits required.
Potentially. Just putting it out there.
Okay, those are my comments.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments relative to the survey before I tie a little bow on this? There being none, so really just to quickly editorialize, there was a time crunch here, and the filming policy is something we've asked the CEO to bring forward, and he had also planned for the delegation to come forward on the 16th, so 1 + 1 equals more information before we go. So Councillor Abbott's made some personal points in this, and I guess that you could take the view that this is an operational issue, and in which case the CAO has the one and only say. So I guess my question for CAO to join in that, given more time, would you want or appreciate council input on some of this? We'll pick the survey, or it's your call.
I'm trying to remember, because I thought I had sent an email to council and didn't get back any responses, but maybe that was on something else.
You sent a notification that it was coming out.
Oh, I know what it was. Never mind, sorry. It was, the email was the suggestion that we have the delegation come to a CSC instead of council meeting.
Yes.
That's what it was. I think it was a case of getting it out the door and, limited time before the delegation was going to come. Wanted to try and bring things to a bit of a head by the 16th. So I apologize for the lack of invitation to
With the
provide
no time you
input.
had left.
It's also a
And
mailing
we'll-
deadline, because we felt strongly that it should go in everybody's mailbox. We wanted to,
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
use
it
what
was-
Councillor
that
Abbott
was-
had found with the mailbox. We wanted to get it out.
Right.
All right then, well, thank you very much. So then to tie the bow on this then, when possible, if you could come back for some, let's call it governance and, or minor input. And I guess it could, Well, it wouldn't be preferred, even if you were in on a time bind, it could come electronically, and then we could make mention of it in the following agenda. Would that suit with you, Councillor Abbott?
Yep, I'd love to have some input there.
Thank you. All right.
Can we tread a sort of micromanaging line if we ask for that all the time? You know, staff has.
I'm thinking this was kind of a pretty meaningful piece of stuff
Okay.
that went to the community, and it did have our name on it. So I think Councillor Abbott's right, and the CAO DeJong is correct as well too. Okay, well, you got a twofer out of that one, Councillor Abbott, so I think that we are now ready with no further discussion and with the new business concluded in the business arising. Getting a lot of free balls tonight, Councillor Abbott. Can I have, I'll call a motion, all in favor of the minutes as amended and as discussed. Thank you.
I'd just like to say that I thought that the flyers looked really nice, almost to the point where I recycled it, because I didn't realize it came from us. I thought it was another marketing something, so.
Kind of a backhanded compliment.
Good, all right. Well, thank you for that
It looked
perspective. All right, we've accomplished a bunch of things. So business arising, new business is now concluded. Unfinished business. Okay, batters up. CAO, you have 76.
No, I don't. It's nothing to report.
Nothing to report. The following one.
Oh, sorry, 76. That's
done.
Yeah, sorry.
Strike, please, Shauna. The following one, number 83.
Yeah, no, that's just
Pending.
treading water.
Number 94 is done, and for the council members, I suggest if you cannot commit that letter to memory, that you take a photocopy, put it in the family safe, because when somebody complains about highway noise, there's your pat answer. Number 95, the charging station, CAO.
It's ongoing.
Ongoing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it at the last staff meeting.
Okay, and fine. Any chance that happening for the next meeting with a recommendation?
No.
No? Okay. Well, number 96, Councillor Cunliffe and I are going to compete for the longest delayed response to a residence. Well, I've spoken to former Mayor Burr several times. I have not put pen to paper, but I commit that I will clean the decks by the next council meeting. And he accepted that. Thank you. Okay, that concludes that. On to the reports. Staff? None. Mayor? None. Council members? None. Committees? CAO and Councillor Bain, you are batters up.
Well, you wanna go?
Okay. Yeah, if I can go back to the minutes, just briefly. The format that I was given to take off on this was moved in second that council approved the formation of a select committee to begin compiling information that will inform the creation of an optional evacuation routes, or plural, for each neighborhood to be added as appendices to the current evacuation plan. We started off down the road correctly, and we had a little bit of stuff coming in. John Dudley had a fairly good wrap on some of the trails, and Ed Langford had some information. And then we kind of lost our way, and we got talking about where this was going, and we were talking about evacuation OGs and grant funding. And consequently, I don't have a compilation. So we didn't meet the objective, and I've got really nothing to share with council at this time. So I have a proposal. Rather than sit down and have another committee meeting of it, I would volunteer to interview selected residents in the various neighborhoods and get their views, and I could compile the opinions from people all over the village if I can. Talking about time crunch, I think we got to get the information in, and I don't want to sit in another meeting where we don't achieve our objective. And I think I can achieve the objective by finding people who have been here for a fair while, are familiar with all the routes and passages throughout the village, and come up with some ideas, not that they're written in stone, but information for an emergency planning committee when one gets struck in the near future, hopefully, once we get a emergency program coordinator in the seat. So I'm willing to do that. I've got very little, well, I can show you some of the stuff I've got. I've got two pieces from John Dudley, lengthy reads, but somewhat lengthy. A lot of good ideas on some of the trails aspects of evacuation, really insightful. It's going to demand a lot more work to hunt more of this stuff down. Ed Langford had a number of possible pinch points where evacuation could be difficult, with suggested evacuation routes. All this stuff is good stuff that we could put into the information from the residents. But again, I don't expect to do much more than compiling information, and so I don't think that would be a problem for anybody around the table, unless somebody could advise me otherwise.
Well, I thought that the idea was to get more people to sit on the committee who have a keen interest and who have long time knowledge for their neighborhoods and or generally speaking, and then the committee as a whole would go through all that information and sort through it and figure out what might work and what might not, and what the challenges would be with each, pros and cons perhaps, sift through it, create some options, A, B, C, D, whatever.
I think that's down the road, because we haven't been able to sit down and get together. Your time's valuable. I'm running out of time before the summer break. I just can't see setting together a select committee now that's actually going to get down to the nitty-gritty of this and actually talk about what paths are open and what aren't. I don't really care where this is going in the long term as far as grant funding, for example, and quite frankly, I wish we didn't bother talking about it at our meeting, because we didn't achieve anything really other than the assimilation or the gathering of some printed material and some interesting conversations. So that's why I'm volunteering to interview people who might have good information and put it in print, share it with everybody who's coming, and maybe when we get around to the select committee, hopefully with the EPC in the chair, then we can go through all the information as you're suggesting and save us an awful lot of time and actually get some ideas of what to do if sort of the big one comes.
Can I just ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
The goal would be to have a map
Mm-hmm.
with routes. That's the ultimate goal.
Right.
Right? That all residents can understand, that's easy to follow, that we would eventually distribute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I think that would come after, again, an emergency planning committee is set up and all these final information bits can be mapped out
Yeah.
and come to a decision on it. I'm
Yeah,
not suggesting.
I guess I don't even understand the scale of the number of routes we're talking about. So we know, we obviously have a map of the village, we know the roads are.
Mhm.
And now we're talking about adding 50 routes, are we talking about adding 3 major routes? Like, what's the scale of this?
We don't know until we
Okay.
start asking.
Okay.
Well, we have a little more than that. There is a trail map of the village
Okay.
as well, right? So we have a little more of that. That's a bit of a starting point. But the question is, are all those trails accessible? And how do you get to them, and do people know? And that's, I guess, what Fred's suggesting.
Are they overgrown, or they're
Yeah.
full of rocks, or?
The trails on the trail map are all passable, those are all major trails. The things that aren't necessarily passable are like the easements and other areas like that might separate two properties, but on a map you might think, oh yeah, there's a trail, or there's a way to get out.
Sure, there's a
but
little bit more
it
than
may not be accessible.
Not all lines on the trail map are equal by any stretch of the imagination. You can drive down Sound View right? But I wouldn't do it in a small, smooth-tired electric vehicle. I would make sure you had something four-wheel drive or better. So that's the kind of level of information I think. I'm assuming that's what you want to start putting together in a region, neighbourhood by neighbourhood area. So there's people in each neighbourhood that kind of understand those things.
Yeah, I'd like to start off with the most significant escape routes, like you mentioned Soundview. I would gather or guess that there's a lot of people in the upper portions of our communities that really don't know where Soundview goes to. And that would be dangerous if they don't have that information and we get a forest fire nearby. So I think it would be helpful. There could be different points of access to that. But we've got to find out where the major flow of evacuations could go. And people who've lived in the neighborhoods usually go bushwhacking often. They've been here for a long time, and they've got a pretty good idea of the terrain, a lot better than I would. So,
Okay.
I think it's a good idea if that's what you want to do. I mean, if it's coming to a vote.
Let's make this unilateral go forth.
Okay.
Unless there's any disagreement. CIO, you're fine. Gather away. Thank you very much for both of your reports. I'm gonna kill myself sometime. Okay.
don't do that.
There we go. Emergency services, none. Resolution, relaxation of bylaws. So, if you probably already have referred to page 61, which is the start of the fuller information. So what we have here on the agenda piece is the residents' request and then the staff recommendation. Why don't we start with, I will put, yes?
I've got additional information that I would like to
How much fast-breaking stuff can happen in a day?
Yeah. I did reach out to the applicant, Pat Taylor, and so I determined that, some of the questions that I was asking was along the lines of, it could be up to 100 people according to the materials, and a 10-piece band on a good holiday weather day that could potentially grow, I was thinking. So I wanted to know what kind of outreach to and support from the residents of Brunswick Beach, especially the immediate neighbors, had been conducted. And also with respect to parking, that it's a challenge at the best of times. There's probably about 5 legitimate permit-only parking spots on the west side of the train tracks down there. And you can only fit 15 vehicles or so at the Brunswick interchange, which is not our jurisdiction. And beyond that, there's really no parking in Brunswick Beach other than people's driveways. So I queried the idea of supportive neighbors offering up their driveways to those who would need it, or alternatively figuring out some options with the transit. Pat got back to me and let me know that they're capping the event at 80 people, which includes the band support team and themselves. And the application, I think for the funding she must be referring to, was done prior to her offering up the venue. An initial invite was sent out on June 14th to, firstly, the residents of Brunswick Beach, wanting to create a Brunswick community event. People who normally have a Brunswick community event each year were not going to be in town. So she stepped up, invited residents of Brunswick Beach to register prior to June 30th before opening it up to any other residents. Which just happened on July 1st. At this point in time, there's 44 people from Brunswick Beach and 2 from the rest of Lions Bay. So she's going to promote it again for another round in Brunswick, as there's only 21 more tickets available. Parking, absolutely, she's going to ask the neighbors who've always assisted with parking requirements. And they'll arrange guest passes for anyone who doesn't have a Lions Bay sticker and needs it. And everyone's going to have to check in and get their permits. Transit isn't really gonna work because last bus on a Monday is 6:37 and it goes until 8. So, she wasn't able to attend tonight, had to work, but I said I would convey this information to council. And that's about it. So, that's the additional information.
So, you go first.
Oh, I'm curious, just that the co-applicant's name would imply that maybe this is a Lions Bay House concert?
Could be.
That was
Looks
the
like it.
grant piece of it.
Yeah, it looks like they put in
It's a
a,
House Day concert. It has been advertised on the Mom's Facebook page. The tickets are available on Eventbrite as part of the Lions Bay House concerts.
That's where you get the tickets?
Well, it was yesterday. This one pulled it down because I went to look when I saw
It's
it.
right here, it's BCD in Brunswick Beach, my son the hurricane.
Yeah.
So it's
My-
being
my-
promoted.
My question was, is this still the event they're talking about? Did they apply for this grant?
I
Because
don't know,
it
I
talks about a
didn't
block, it
ask.
talks about a block party on the beach.
I think we should just use the application as information and glean what you want out of it. I mean, we're not the granting people. And to me, it basically, I'm gonna speculate, it was just the easiest way for them to get the most information to us.
So we know that it's a house party, not a block party on the beach. Because the two bits of information are different. That's the part that I just was hoping there was someone could answer. If we've kept it and it's less than 100, I guess that helps. I was trying to imagine, 100 people on the beach in Brunswick Beach is what it describes initially. But now I imagine I'm to believe it's been moved to someone's property now.
well, I think it was always to be somebody's property.
Look, celebration in our cul-de-sac or on Brunswick Beach is what it says.
In the grant app?
In the grant.
What page? 63?
It didn't,
The two sound like, first of all, I thought I was looking at two different events, and then I knew I couldn't be. But I guess it's scaled down, and it's not this Brunswick Beach cul-de-sac all welcome party anymore.
I don't know, but the long and short of it is that the applicant is applying to council for a dispensation with respect to the noise bylaw. And I already informed her that parking would not be relaxed, that guest parking permits would be required for the few stalls that are available. And, I've just basically read out her email. So I don't, council is not being asked to, nor should it, in any way condone or sanction the event, so to speak. I think that council should limit themselves to approving or not approving the request for relaxation of the noise bylaw to 8:30.
Good, and on that point, I'd like to go to, I am going to we'll do this in a more formal way. I'm going to put forward the staff recommendation as it is on the agenda. I'll put forward a motion. I'm going to ask for a second, then we'll go to discussion on this. Can I have motions put forward? Can I have a second? Thank you. Discussion. Thank you very much, CAO, for the preamble and your advice. Like Councillor Abbott saw, I was confused whether it was a house, a cul-de-sac, or the beach, but that's not our purview, and I appreciate the changes. The thing that bothers me is what I see developing at the commercial complex below us here with the residential area above it. And I know that there are 33 homes at Brunswick Beach, and I know that they have a common email. And if we've learned anything tonight, there are people who like to hear acoustical music, and there are people who don't like to hear acoustical music. And the Taylors have not given us any numbers or idea of who's wildly in favor of this. but there may be those that are not. And I really would appreciate that kind of data before I made a ruling myself. So I would be looking for something in the yes, Public Works Manager?
I'll wait after you're done.
Thank you. You can wink at me next time.
Sorry.
There we go. I'm thinking I'd probably like to see an extremely strong number of the residents say they're in favor of what may not be the perfect parking plan, noise component, and after-party effects. And that would be my thinking on this. Any other discussion? Yes, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna voice my support for your comment. I had originally thought that it was at the resident's house, but the grant app says on the beach, and my concern there would be there's no garbage cans, there's no public facilities. So having a large gathering on the beach could result in staff time cleaning up after the event.
Didn't someone say the application was done first before they had a
Yeah.
venue? And I
I
think maybe
think-
I was just gonna say,
Ms.
she sent an
Leger
email.
had just sent out a blanket
Yeah.
EC day and then,
Councillor Abbott, you're next, and then CAO to join.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I thought where you were going was bring this back next time with more information.
Yes,
That's where I was.
entirely. I really don't want another one of these
Yeah,
multiple, and they're under a time crunch too. We meet on the 16th and we're done.
but we've got one shot at it.
Yeah,
But we
so
need more
I think that
resident input and so on.
my thinking, just to elaborate further, is, and the CAO want to talk about this, that there is this ability to electronically have people, and I understand there are some investors, absenteeism and stuff like that, but, and perhaps the tailors can put some color to that, but I really would like to see overwhelming direct community support, because as we see, sometimes things don't always go according to plan, and I really don't want to see folks here first meeting in September complaining about it.
So the 44 people that signed up from Brunswick does
And
not constitute overwhelming support.
44, so there's 33 residents. I don't know whether that's, if I do 44 divided by 2 being theoretically partners, that's a good start.
Out of curiosity, when it comes to parking, on a long weekend, would that part of the highway not be filled up with people
Oh,
parking?
but people over there are swimming since 10 in the morning. There's going to be no parking.
Mhm.
So I think polling the neighbors and seeing who's able to give up a driveway is vital.
Mhm.
Because the transit doesn't run on holidays the same way it does.
Yeah,
So it could be very problematic in that sense.
I think that's her intent, according to the email, is that neighbors will be
Will be,
providing
yeah.
support through offering up their driveways
I
as
can
they
s-
have in the past, apparently.
I can see you're going to be doing dialogue here, so I would think that would be conditional. I mean, they're going to need to cover off the number of people they expect to come. Other councillors, time to weigh in?
I'm happy to wait until next time to make a decision.
Okay, so I think if I can editorialize this, where we are is to hand this back to the CAO to continue the dialogue with the tailors. I think, however he phrases it, we're extremely concerned about parking, or we would like to see a commitment for local neighborhood parking to cover what is sure to be 90% overflow. And again, just for the double final confirmation, this is at a home. And I think, however it's done, and I appreciate that not everybody that's on the Brunswick Beach resident email cluster can respond, but I'd like to see, or we would like to see a overwhelming commitment, not just the numbers of folks, but let's say at the homes. Any additions or changes to that, colleagues?
So do you have a number in mind?
Why don't I put that to the table? Let's say there are
Or maybe
30,
that's not-
33 homes, again, a bunch are probably maybe absent or investor, or I don't know if they're empty, I don't know. What would be a percentage that people would be comfortable with?
I think probably, sorry to
Don't
jump back
shoot.
in on that, I asked the question, but no,
Why
I
don't
think,
you
I
answer
think
it?
that's a bad idea. I think you should just wait and see what the
I think you already give people
information
the
comes back
opportunity
and
to.
judge for
Yeah.
yourselves what you
Yeah.
think is appropriate. when the
Councillor
time comes.
Barmaer?
I just feel like this is worded a bit nebulous in the sense that, you know, part of the resolution talks about a BCD Brunswick Beach block party. So
Well, that's heard.
that's already done, right? That's been approved. We can have a block, we don't need special permission for a block party in the neighborhoods. Anybody can have a block party.
No,
It-
that's not
the-
what.
that's
council-
right.
I'm asking questions to clarify this for myself. So, we're not concerned with a block party, we're not concerned with someone hosting 50 to 100 people, that's clearly not for us to worry about. The only ask here is that we let them play live music until 8:30, where it's normally 8. So we're talking about 30 minutes.
Well, it's not just normally 8, it's amplified
It
as
doesn't
well.
say amplified anywhere in the text. I
Well,
haven't read the word amplified.
They probably don't understand the nuances of our bylaw.
Yeah, but that's, okay, well, then that's what I'm getting at, the language is not clear.
But that's not
So-
that's not the resolution that council was being asked to vote
We do
on.
know it's a 10-piece brass band.
But it's not amplified.
So what is before us, Councillor Barmaer, is, that we're discussing is the staff recommendation, which is purely time.
Yeah. so
And
relax
that would be fine, and it's kind of one-shot thing, but we're talking high volume, no parking, and perhaps other neighbors not in agreement.
We're not giving permission to, we can't tell people they can't have a party.
No.
That's not new. All we're being asked to do is relax the noise bylaw by 30 minutes. We can't tell people not to have a party. We can't tell people not to invite 100 people over to their house. So I'm confused about what we're being asked to do here, because if it's just about relaxing the noise bylaw for 30 minutes, why are we even, it's 30 minutes. It's a big deal.
Okay, Councillor Abbott?
I disagree. It's irresponsible. We've been told here in one page it was going to be up to 100 people. We know that area can't handle it. We can't turn a blind eye to something like that. We've got a responsibility to show some leadership.
So we need to have an application for Black Party?
I'm not saying we need to have an application. We know that there was the original idea of having 100 people in a block party in a small area, and we can't just turn a blind eye to that, and then something, does happen, and we knew about it, and we didn't at least try to find out that people put appropriate control measures in place. We've got to show some level of responsibility.
I share that view, Councillor Abbott, and I think that, and I believe the Taylors, the way they're playing ball, to recognize it in their form of their resolution with trying to find a way to create more parking spots and things of that nature, but we just really can't hide our heads in the sand on this one.
I think, sorry, in my own opinion, and I'm sure it's everyone's opinion, I think everyone wants this to happen, right? It sounds like a great community event.
I
But it's not
personally
create a bad
agree
circumstance by-
with it, but I'd like to take the risks out of it.
Yes, help them.
Yeah, and help them
Get
actually.
something successful.
Thank you. All right, last,
Still, sorry guys, I'm still not, but we're not being asked.
We're not getting this.
We're only being asked about 30 minutes noise
Fair enough.
bylaw.
Okay.
well, I'll put the CAO on the spot.
It's, the bylaw will have to be relaxed for the entire time the band is going to play. In reality, it's not 30 minutes, it's whatever time the band starts
2.5
till they
hours,
finish.
3 hours.
That's what's got to be relaxed.
And the parking scenario could be a serious nightmare.
Well, I'm not disputing that at all. It's just, so we're gonna talk about this somewhere, we're not gonna make a decision tonight.
Yeah. Well, no.
Yeah, I don't know how the timelines work for, I mean, they've obviously hired a band. Wouldn't make any difference, I guess, if they had to cancel the band now or in 2 weeks from now.
I suspect that the family is committed to doing this. They're trying to do all the right things coming to us. I think it's just if we're going to put our decision to it, I'd like a little bit more information and be happy on that particular day that we're not getting call-outs of all sorts of odd things happening.
Yeah.
So where we've left it is that I have given the CAO some direction, and I would be looking for the motion to table this with the CAO to go and investigate and have the dialogue with the tailors, and this comes back with a information and perhaps a new recommendation for the meeting of the 16th. I'll give one more round of questions. Any discussion on this before I call that motion? Thank you. All right.
Didn't ask for amplification. So I don't know why we're relaxing. Their ask is so minimal.
All right, well, I'm saying this in the kindest way I can, asked and answered. Okay, I'm going to call the motion. Can I have this tabled on the conditions I mentioned previously? All in favor? Councillor Barmeyer, are you?
That's fine.
You're fine, thank you, it's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Bylaws. Page 67 in your packages, and we are going to go for final reading. The bylaw is before you. Can I have a motion to approve the bylaw? Thank you. A seconder. Any discussion on this one? Last chance, going, gone. How can you not talk about control, prohibiting traffic or parking? Come on. Okay, call a motion. All in favor? Councillor C, B, unanimous. Moved. Thank you. Correspondence. Councillor Barmeyer.
BC Hydro is going to be at 2019 UBCM, and they put out requests to set up meetings directly with them if we're anxious to meet with them, and I don't think we have any direct need to meet with them at UBCM.
No, although you had asked me on the hydro front, but you're waiting for staff to do.
Well, that's a parallel path. We can talk to BC
Okay,
Hydro right
done.
now on that. So that's
Different.
Yeah, so,
Thank you. Next up.
just for clarity, Ron and I talked about reaching out to BC Hydro on the EV project to see if they would. They do put them out into the community and fully paid. So we just have to have that conversation.
So where I'd be going is putting Councillor Barmeyer with my guy who's the media guy, and he can direct him.
Linescape wastewater replacement plant. Ron, you were going to speak to that.
Thank you very much. This came to me, as it did to all the mayors in Metro. There's significant events going on with the wastewater plant and the contractor, and a bunch of stuff I can't talk about, but there was enough depth and volume in this about the kind and quality of plant that I thought it would be worthwhile reading for our own Kelvin Grove plant situation is more for the corporate library. Thank you.
Provincial support for libraries. This came up at the last meeting of June 18th. Again, no response, just for information. Letter to UBCM, proposed vacancy tax. Again, it's for us, just for information. Metro Vancouver published a report on regional long-range growth and transportation scenarios for us to consider in our own transit planning, so we're just receiving that for information. And there was an amendment made to reflect accepted regional context statements, and if we have any questions about those amendments, we are free to ask. Resident correspondence. Anne Crosway.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
could I just have just a comment on that last one before we go to the residents? So, as per our item number 93 on our long-term follow-up plan, see, NMO is actually changing the regional context statements and moving their urban containment boundary.
Sorry, what's that?
According to this document, NMO is applied to change the regional context statement and move their urban containment boundary, except their urban containment boundary is split. The village isn't in or out, it's
Yeah, they
lying through it.
The rural lands and
Yeah.
urban lands, and
So
so there was
when
a,
that came out and we put it on the follow-up action items, one of the things you'd said, you didn't know how easy it was, or what it took to move the urban containment boundary, you were going to find out about it, but maybe there's some guidance from him, or that's slightly different to what we might be suggesting.
yeah, I think it's more of a process question, set of questions that I would be seeking to determine. But I could certainly talk to Julie from Animal. Yeah, I mean, that would be, I mean, their application would be a typical planning department application that is, they have a planner on staff, but that's sort of the not atypical kind of thing for municipalities to do.
Good, thank you.
Resident correspondence, we have an initiative, a Newcomers Event Initiative by Emma Croswaith, and she emailed council, and it sounded like Jamie, you had been sort of earmarked to respond to her.
How about we leave it with Councillor Cunliffe to coordinate and remind council of the date should they choose to attend.
Pardon, can you repeat that?
So if you could remind the council members closer to the date that
Yes.
this is a happening thing and they're present should they choose to go as requested.
So mark your calendar.
Got it, done.
Done.
Craig Doherty had sent an email regarding the utilities inequality. You replied, or you?
I've responded and I'm leaving it at that.
Okay. Evo Mankey, the highway noise, Ron had provided a thorough response. That's done.
Yep.
Susan Leeson, relaxing noise bylaw at 350 Center Road. Well, there's...
This would be part of the
delegation.
melange of things that we're dealing with on that.
Okay, so we'll bundle that in a more comprehensive response?
I think we'll hold that until next meeting.
Okay. Paula Vindegarden, visibility concerns of Brunswick. Looking at the photos and looking at our own bylaws, I think we need something either done or talked about.
Okay, and I believe this is,
Sorry.
Do you want me to talk, or do you want
Sure.
to talk about the hedge
Yeah, the
first?
hedge.
since you're both fighting over an operational issue, fill your boots, let's go.
So the bylaw is for intersections. It does not apply to this, where she talks about. The hedge is on private property.
Period, it's on private property.
Yeah, and you should add, there's no boulevard there. The residents' patio and their living area is directly visible by anybody on the street, or was prior to the hedge, and it's a privacy concern. I did speak to the second complainant, not Mrs. Van Dargen, but I forget her name. Ingrid Gower, and suggested that I could talk to the owners about maybe shortening the height of the hedge. Her response was no, that she understands the need for privacy and the need for the hedge. She just wanted to know if we could put a mirror or some other device. Having talked to other traffic engineers about this, mirrors are not a recommended safety device. There are many, many pitfalls with mirrors. What the recommended solution is what we put up there, reducing the speed and putting up restricted vision signage.
CAO, any further comment?
No, I think we'll follow up with a letter then.
All right,
Yeah,
so this
respond to
will
Mrs. Van Dargen.
so let's just recap. So the writer has sent it to Mayor and Council and is looking for a solution. I think Public Works Manager's response has been pretty clear for the council. So if staff could respond to Mrs. Van Dargana, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's good.
And I think we received Ruth's item.
Right, that's it.
Good, thank you.
Could I just have, before we go to correspondence, just one comment and something else in correspondence? On the one about the noise bylaw that you responded to, Mr. Mayor, the low noise asphalt came up again in this email correspondence. And if I remember when we discussed it last time, we were told, we were told the council, and I was told separately, that asphalt was meant to have a replacement lifetime of every 5 years, and it was written into the agreement. Did we ever find out what happened to that? There was an action for someone to find out.
I talked to the Lodi operations manager, and they have inspected the asphalt, the condition of the asphalt, and say that it's in fair to moderate condition and doesn't require repaving at this time. I said that my understanding was that it needs to be replaced every 5 years or redone, and he said no, not at all. So it's just a condition assessment. So.
All right. So the residents probably have this 5-year time frame in their mind from some discussion.
I don't know. Yeah.
Because there was more than one resident quoted that number. So.
Right.
Okay.
I don't know.
So it's a conditional thing.
That's what I was told.
I think it sounds noisier than it used to be. Don't you?
Replacing a highway tarmac every 5 years
Is a lot of money. Yeah.
ridiculous. Those roads should last for decades. They shouldn't need to be repaved every 5 years. That'd be a nightmare.
Okay, I think we've been asked and answered. Okay. All right, anything else, Councillor Abbott? Good, thank you. All right, so we're finished with correspondence. And we're on to new business, which we covered under a previous area, so there being none. Public questions and comments. The three brave souls. Oh, there's one he's not going to sing out Canada.
Say something. I wanted to go back to the question of the party at Brunswick Beach. Not that it affects me, so I put that, what they have, they don't have it. It's loud or it's not loud, it isn't going to really affect me. But I did note when I read it that I understood there were 44 tickets sold. Is that correct? There was some reference to a number of 44.
Yeah, so she says 44 Brunswick Beach residents and 2 non-Brunswick Beach.
Right, have sold bought tickets.
Yeah.
Right.
Are they actually for sale?
So that's what my question was, those were confirmed as being residents as opposed to being outsiders? Because when you do the math, if there's 33 homes and they all participate, that's 66. And their number is somewhere between 50 and 100. And I'm assuming that being a business, which I think is what it probably really is that the optimum number would be 100. Particularly if they're charging something, and I don't know. So that'd be another part of the question. Is this free to the residents? So there's no cost for outsiders either? So if they get 100 people, nobody's paying anything?
That's my understanding, is that you have to have a ticket to the event, but it's free.
The tickets
So,
are free?
yeah.
Well, that's fine. And I just wanted to clarify in my own mind what the purpose of it was. And that sounds like a legitimate thing to me. So you've answered my question. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you, former Mayor Pollock.
I have a question.
Oh, there we
The
go.
same topic. I understand from what you said, where will your project or event take place? Brunswick Beach in Lions Bay, but the rain location is 39 Brunswick. So if it's raining, they go to the home. Otherwise, it's public, on the public beach, Brunswick Beach.
I believe the CAO will be straightening that away.
Yeah, I think it's the reconciliation of the application to what's
Yeah.
actually happening now, because it sounds like the application was put forth by Tamara Leger first, maybe with the location.
Like again, to repeat, I think the application is just information and a quick way to get to us. All right, Susan, come on.
We're going to go 3 for 3.
Okay, no peer pressure. All right, there are no more public questions and comments. So on that basis, we'll be moving to close the council meeting, and the proposed topics for discussion in the absence of the public is the adoption of the minutes, and that the meeting be closed to the public on the basis matters to be considered under the following sections of the committee.
There was the addition.
Oh, law enforcement.
Thank you.
B,
And so before moving to the resolution as it's written, we need to do, council needs to consider a resolution
on the
that,
topics.
that council considers, that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the conduct of an investigation under or enforcement of an enactment, and that's why we're closing. So if you want to make the motion that council considers that to be the case.
I will make that motion. Can I have a seconder? Yes. Any discussion? There being none.
Okay, and then,
There we go.
and then the next.
And then, okay, that the meeting be closed to the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the Community Charter. 91, a part of a council meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered relates to or is one or more of the following. A, personal information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or another position appointed by the municipality.
Or F,
Or F,
law enforcement, if council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the conduct of an investigation under or enforcement of an enactment.
good. Council does not anticipate reconvening the open meeting for any purpose other than to adjourn the meeting generally. Shall we close? Thank you, Shauna. So, we are back into the live session at 20 after 9. And I previously said there was nothing to report out. And the IC terms of reference and the agenda will be
Circulated for
circulated
Thursday's
in
meeting.
advance of the meeting on Thursday. There we go. And have a motion to adjourn. Yes, second, third, done. Thank you, Shauna, and we are done.